IKEA Talking Together event in collaboration with Royal Aeronautical Society and IET, which today is with Matthew Warwick and Riona Arsmith. Myself, Julie Bevino, I'll be hosting, and I'm also diversity lead for the IKEA Young Member Committee and Young Professional Rolls-Royce. Today we'll be exploring in more detail the topic of dealing with loneliness, disappointment, and uncertainty in professional life from the perspective of senior Rolls-Royce, an active member of PRIS and GDN network. And we'll be asking both Warwick and Riona some excellent questions from our young members. So to begin, let's first give Warwick and Riona an opportunity to introduce themselves before starting the discussion. So would you like to talk a bit more about your day-to-day life and who you are, who you are, anything about yourself you would like to share?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Riona Arsmith. I'm the Chief Project Engineer for Hybrid Electric Propulsion at Rolls-Royce. What do I do in my day-to-day role? That's really challenging. It changes every day. So I look after the delivery of hybrid electric programs in Rolls-Royce. So I can do anything from looking at technical test results. You know, how is our electrical testing going, for example? What are the results on a certain parameter that we're interested in understanding, right through to commercial negotiations, contract negotiations, obviously staffing, all of that sort of stuff. So it's I don't know on any given day whether I'm an engineer, a program manager, a business leader, and kind of a bit of everything at the minute.
Okay, thank you, Riona. Hi, everybody. My name is Warwick Matthews. I think later there's a question around imposter syndrome. I'm probably the ultimate imposter in this early career engineering session because firstly, I've been at Rolls-Royce for 21 years, nearly 22 years. So early career is a bit of a stretch. And I'm also not an engineer. So I joined Rolls-Royce with a business degree, and I've done a huge variety of roles, but now my job is Chief Procurement Officer for Civil Aerospace Operations. And that means that my team is in charge of buying everything that we need to build, make and service engines out there in the world. So we spend a lot of money with a global supply chain that stretches from the West Coast of the US to the far reaches of Asia. And so in my day-to-day job, I get to do a huge variety of tasks leading that team. And at the moment, clearly we'll talk about it later as well. We're in the grips of a aviation crisis through COVID-19, and I spend a lot of my time dealing with the implications of that, working with our suppliers, getting the best out of our suppliers, getting the best support from them as well, and also making sure that we all stay healthy through this crisis that we're in. Another thing I do, and I'm very proud of doing, is I work a lot on diversity and inclusion within Rolls-Royce, and I chair our Diversity and Inclusion Council for Civil Aerospace. And I also co-sponsor one of our really important employee resource groups, ERGs, and no doubt we'll talk a bit more about that as we go through. So that's me. Hi.
Thank you very much. It's always very interesting to hear other people's career and roles. So to start with, one very interesting question we received is about how has attitude changed towards mental health from early career to now?
Yeah, and I think this is one where I'm going to lead, and Riona will follow, and we'll take a different order as we go through things. Because I said I'm the old one, so I get to talk about how things were when I joined and how different they are now. And I think on the subject of mental health, it is a really stark difference. And I can look at that from both me personally and from Rolls-Royce as a company and the engineering industry really as a set of companies. So I joined in and really got into my career in the very early 2000s, joined the company in 1998. And so from a personal point of view, I probably had a very, very poor understanding at that point of mental health. I think I would have seen a real stigma attached to mental health. It's a subject that wasn't really talked about. And if I was suffering from any form of mental health, I would see that that could be a real sign of weakness, and held against me. And I probably wouldn't have been very open in talking about it. And really from how was the business in those days, the early 2000s, I think it would be very similar. I think those same issues, a stigma, not really well understood, not deemed in the same league as a physical health issue, would have reflected business at that time. And I'm really happy to say that that's not the position that we're in now. Certainly me personally, that's not the position I'm in now. I think overall of that time in a career and working and leading large groups of people, you see everything. And I think my view around mental health has been shaped by experiences, really. Some of those positive, some of those incredibly sad, of people who've got to the ultimate sad decision around really struggling with their mental health, to being much more savvy, much more aware of triggers, what can cause issues, whether that's for me personally or for people in the business, and understanding and being able to work to support others around me. And understanding, I think, on mental health, that it's very often not the things at work that can trigger events. It's very often the things outside of work that you need to be conscious of as a leader of people. And then in the business, so what's changed? Well, I can speak for Rolls-Royce, certainly. Awareness is very different. The amount of focus within the company on mental health is very, very different. It's been led by some great people, great leaders that we have in our business. I'd look at David Rooms, who's our Chief Medical Officer and heads up HS&E, has driven a step change. We have mental health champions within our teams all across the company who are trained to really be the specialists, the go-to people that our employees can lean on. There are dedicated resources. We have employee assistance programs, anonymized services like that, where employees can go for help and support. We talk about things openly. We have on Engine Room, which is our intranet page, we have dedicated support services for mental health. And lastly, we have an example I would pick is around awareness. We have a great series that's been running for the last half a year or so called People Like Me. And that goes out on a lot of our internal channels. It's people talking about themselves, issues they've faced, how they've overcome them. A lot of those are on the subject of mental health. And that makes it all right to talk about mental health. It makes it okay not to be okay. And it encourages other people to talk and have an open dialogue and know that support is there. So that would be my view. A lot's changed. It's really positive to see it has changed, and we're in a very different position now. Riona, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's been a similar experience for me, I guess, when I joined Rolls-Royce nearly 7 years ago. Just mental health just wasn't something that was really spoken about. I don't think it was exactly quite as much of a stigma as maybe it has been in the past, but it just wasn't something that you spoke about. It really wasn't. And I think now, and especially with these times in COVID where everyone is going through some form of mental challenge, irrespective of your position, your home life, your any number of factors, everyone is finding this challenging in some way. And I think actually it's been a great opportunity for having those conversations that go, are you okay? I speak to my team all the time, and the first thing I say is, how are you? Genuinely, how are you? What's going on? And in the process of becoming a leader and a leader of people, I find that most of my conversations start with, how are you? How's the family? I really try and understand my team and where they are on any given day based on what's going on around them. And I really feel quite proud of the fact that my team are really open and honest about events that are going on in their life. Much more than I've ever experienced working in other teams. So You know, there are, I don't want to give specific examples because it's personal to the members of my team, but we speak openly about loss of, you know, a wide range of family members. We speak about you know, any sort of illnesses and this sort of, and just kind of it really is hard not to give concrete examples to back up this opinion, but it's kind of, it's just the way that things are openly spoken about, and you know, it's kind of like, it's almost like it's shared with the whole team as well, not just with me personally. And I am really encouraged that we have the kind of environment where that is completely okay, and everyone talks about it. And sometimes I think because I'm quite open and honest about these things, you know, it's there are so many things that go on in your personal life that affect your work on a day-to-day basis, and I think to really get the best out of everyone, you need to understand both of those things. And definitely where we are now is a completely different situation to where we were 7 years ago. I mean, you know, one example that I give is, so when I joined Rolls-Royce, I wasn't out. So I'm a gay woman. I have a wife and a daughter. I wasn't out when I first joined, and I spent, you know, a couple of years hiding, probably unnecessarily, to be honest, and that impacted my ability to build relationships at work, to really, you know, if you can't talk about your weekend with a person who sits next to you for fear of saying she instead of they, or, you know, it is really, really, really hard, and it impacts you on a daily basis, because you're constantly watching what you're saying, you know, and you're constantly, you know, you're just not building those relationships. And so I know what it feels like to not be able to bring the whole of you to work and how that impacts you. And so I am really quite honest about all of that sort of stuff, and you know, in a wide range of topics, not just about being a gay woman. And so I think sometimes because I show that side of me, that vulnerability, that encourages members of my team to also talk about, you know, what impacts them on a day-to-day basis at work.
Thank you very much. I think from my point of view, it's really good to hear this, because it also makes me as a young professional and everyone around me be able to also speak up and say, well, I'm not okay today. This is really good to hear. Thank you very much. Moving to next question. This is a question I feel very close. So I was wondering if you ever experienced imposter syndrome when a young engineer, and what is your outlook on this and how it can impact confidence?
Yeah, I mean, I laughed a bit there when you said that, because it's the question is, did you experience it as a young engineer? You know, I experience it every day. I still experience it now every day. I don't know whether I'm classed as a young engineer anymore. I'm 30, but it's still present. It's a thing that female engineers, or, you know, just generally females in the workplace talk about quite a lot. Yes, it is real. It's you know, especially I think when you're starting a new role, or if you've moved up or something like that, I think that can be really challenging at first, and just sort of getting over that confidence hurdle of, yes, you know, I am here, I'm the right person, I'm not just, you know, I'm not just you know, the least I don't know how to describe it. You know, you've not just been put in a role because there was no one else. You know, you have genuinely been chosen because you are the best at what you do, and it's hard. It's hard. I see it in some members of my team where I sit them down and I say to them, "You are far more capable than you think you are." It's a conversation I have had numerous times over the years of going, you know what, stop, put yourself down, stop. You know, just trust in yourself. You are doing a really good job and you are really capable. You just need a bit more confidence. And yeah, I think everyone probably experiences that at some point. And I think sometimes, you know, you experience it for a longer period of time than others do. But yeah, definitely as a female engineer, yeah, I've experienced it, and there is no solution. There is no solution. I think that one of the good things I've had is people around me who have done that to me, who have said, you know what, stop it. You're really good. Stop questioning yourself all the time. You're doing a good job, and that really does help.
Building up to it.
As with a few of these, Riona's got better answers than I have. So so we decided on this one. Julia, we're going to move on to the next question, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, it's building up to this anyway. The next one is talking about they can be tough and isolating to be an employee in a group. They're less represented, and especially in engineering world where there's a number of them. And how can this be a challenge? And how would you help overcome this? Obviously, from your more senior position, how would you approach this as well?
Yeah, so I'll start with more personal experience, and I think Warwick's going to follow up with some of the what the company is really doing in order to support this. So from my personal experience, yeah, as a young gay female engineer, I mean, you know, there aren't too many more levels that I could bring into that would make me less represented in the workforce. Obviously, I'm white, and that's the only majority I fit in. So yeah, it is isolating. It really can be isolating at times. It's not always isolating, but it can be. And one of the examples here that I can give is that, especially when I first started out in my career, and it wasn't at Rolls-Royce, there was the first company I started in, there was a big age gap in terms of people working in the company. So there are a lot of people that were, you know, 50 plus, close to retirement, and then there was quite a chasm in the workforce, and they were really trying to recruit young people and, you know, graduates into the company, because they realized that they were going to have a huge problem in a very short amount of time with you know, with an aging workforce that were about to retire, and that was quite challenging as a young female to come into, because essentially you were surrounded by men approaching retirement age, and so there are certain things that kind of stop you being involved. So it's more like I didn't find it was necessarily at work. I was always included at work, but it's things like, you know, a lot of the guys would go for a drink at the pub after work, and I think it was almost from a position of they didn't think that a 22-year-old woman would want to go for a beer with a load of 50-year-old men at you know, a local pub. And so you're sort of excluded from some of these more social things, just because I think sometimes people just wouldn't even consider that you would want to go and do that. And I still see that happens now. So I'm still, you know, one of very few women. I still work with men that are generally considerably older than me, and that is still a thing that happens now. So I think it helps. So what we try and do on my team is have a range of after work social events that are inclusive for all kinds of different people. So we don't just, it isn't just, you know, the social life isn't just around alcohol, for one, which helps, but equally, you know, might be more based around the fact that a lot of my team have families and that sort of stuff. So trying to have a mix of these kind of out of work social events that are more inclusive and not necessarily sort of dominated by what you would typically do of a certain age. I think that really helps. One of the things that has recently helped me is connecting more with other female engineers in the business. We sort of created, and actually this has happened through the Gender Diversity Network, which really helps. So for me, it's really good to speak to another female senior female engineer in the company. That has been so incredible, because you realize that the experiences that you have are not yours alone. You're having that experience with someone else. It's not just you. You're not alone. And that is a great a great thing, and just talking more as a group has been fantastic. So yeah, I would encourage people to get involved in these employee resource groups, because they do actually, they do create a network that wouldn't naturally be there, because you're one person and you're part of the business when there's no one else like you around you.
Good. Yeah, I think it's another great answer, and it leads nicely into a little bit more about our employee resource groups, ERGs, and explaining a little bit about what these are. They haven't been around for that many years. I think probably about 5 years, 6 years maximum. But we've had resource groups or networks that have developed just from people who want to get on and lead them, and committees forming. I mentioned I'm co-sponsor of PRISM, which is our LGBT plus network. We've got 1,000 people who are either out LGBT or allies in the business. And I've just seen tremendous change be delivered through that group and through the other ERGs. And they're numerous as well. Gender Diversity Network was mentioned, ACPN, our African Caribbean Pioneers Network, our Multi-Faith Network, all do fantastic work across the business on awareness, but they also create this network and this community. And I think if one of the most powerful things that's driving inclusion rather than diversity within our company, it would be these networks. And it's something that the whole industry is picking up as well. I'll maybe talk a bit about how we've collaborated with other engineering companies as well. So building inclusion, I think we can also look at new approaches that we're taking through our recruitment, in particular around diversity. So we've been really proud to sponsor the Female Undergraduate of the Year award, something Julia's very familiar with, each year, and that provides access to some incredibly talented engineers and other colleagues who've joined us from going through that program. Going to events like National Student Pride is something that you wouldn't have expected Rolls-Royce to do years ago. We're really proud to do that. We're developing the use of anonymized CVs, for example, in our recruitment, so there isn't conscious or unconscious bias about our recruitment. And when we do select people, we put more and more diverse recruitment panels in place. So we've changed our focus. It's been really helped by the formation of the ERGs and their development and their maturing. We've got a long way to go still. The whole industry has. I think we'll acknowledge that, maybe talk about that too. But again, things are really changing. So it's becoming less of an issue to perceive that you're from a non-represented group when you see this going on around the company, or when you're looking into Rolls-Royce as a potential career.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I can definitely support the Female Undergraduate of the Year. There's been a very big work pushed towards it, and I think it also helps and lead quite nice next question. So, as a already quite senior in a company, someone young, not even part of the business yet, to approach you and ask you, what would you say to someone from a minority group looking at engineering and feeling uncertain about industry that has a long way to go in diversity and inclusion? So it's a known fact that a lot of women graduate in engineering and then go into banking or other things, or similar for men as well. So how would you have this conversation? What would you say?
Yeah, I think we'll switch order here. I'll lead and Riona will follow on this one. But my view is that I would say things are changing really, really quickly, and that's not just the makeup of our workforce, but it's what we're doing. Riona is case in point with the job that she does and the just pioneering new technology. The shift from being a mechanical engineering company for many years is rapidly changing into electrification, into hybrid. We're a power company, not just a aerospace engine company. We're a power company, and the move into renewables, the absolute push on low carbon, zero carbon power, and then the driving force that is digital means we need to think differently about the employees that we want in our company. It's very, very diverse what we have to do to be an industrial technology leader, and that is our goal. Companies like Rolls-Royce and many in engineering are waking up to the fact as well that in order to be innovators, you need diverse teams. If you recruit with the same criteria and go and fish in the same pool from the same universities and get a broadly similar set of recruits coming in who've got similar experiences, similar backgrounds, similar privileges, maybe, I don't know, you're going to drive quite narrow group thinking. And we get that. And the fact that we want people with diverse experiences, backgrounds, educations, nationalities to come together and innovate in a company. I was thinking of an example of this. One example is I previously led our control systems business, which was once upon a time Goodrich, then a joint venture company, and now part of Rolls-Royce. And I kind of remarked in my early days in that business how different the workforce looked compared to walking around, say, a big engineering hall in Derby. And why was that? And one of the reasons was there were different requirements around recruitment. And one of the big difference was that Rolls-Royce had always insisted upon a master's in engineering, an MSc, in order to be an engineer at Rolls-Royce. You know, you have to be master's qualified. That wasn't the case in the business that I was running. It didn't mean that we had worse engineers. It meant that we were looking in a different pool. You know, I met absolutely brilliant young engineers who just had no intention whatsoever of funding a master's or putting themselves through a master's, but they were absolutely brilliant in the job that they did. And it was great to see the outcome of when this business was incorporated into Rolls-Royce wasn't that they had to do the same thing and only accept masters. They actually overturned that policy for the whole company. And we recognized that that's a good thing, it's a positive thing, and we changed. To a minority group looking at Rolls-Royce, I'd come back to the ERGs again, giving them quite a plug, but for good reason. You know, there are networks there that are not just there to support, they are to help members overcome perceived or real barriers in the company. They're there to help people develop new skills. And as I mentioned, this isn't just a Rolls-Royce story. And in my example with Prism, you know, we've collaborated with other companies, whether that's Airbus, a host of airlines, Jaguar Land Rover, Balfour Beatty, and you know, there's some great work going on across the industry that's recognizing that these networks can really help develop the diversity, but most importantly, drive the inclusion, because once you've got diverse talent, you'll very easily lose it if you don't have an inclusive culture. That's what I'd say. Riona, to you.
Yeah, I'm definitely appreciative of the change in entry requirements to the graduate scheme. So at the point of time when I joined Rolls-Royce, I was a direct entry. I didn't come through the grad scheme. I would not have met the entrance criteria for the graduate scheme. So I don't have a master's. And so, yeah, I see that was a very good thing to do. And yeah, and the main reason for me not having a master's was financial. It was not, you know, I come from a working class background. It just wasn't something that was remotely viable for me at all. And so, yeah, I think it was a small change. What could have been seen as a small change, but probably in the fullness of time will be a huge game changer in terms of the entrance that we have into this business. I think equally looking at recruiting from other universities too. There are, you know, a lot of people in Rolls-Royce that have come from the same universities, from the same backgrounds and everything like that. And frankly, where I sit, looking at the future, I can't go and recruit from those universities because they don't have the skill set that I need. So yeah, looking towards the future and a more electric future with, you know, increased levels of requirements for software engineers and you know, electronics engineers, electrical engineers. You can't get them from the same universities that we've been recruiting from for years. And so yes, it's definitely needed all round. And yeah, I think it's, what would I say to someone from a minority group? Well, to be honest, my experience of working with engineers is they're pretty good people generally. You know, they're always seeking out, you know, always trying to learn. And that doesn't just apply to, you know, learning a new technical skill. It's trying to learn more about other people as well. Generally, a pretty open-minded bunch of people, I would say. And so, you know, my experience has been, you know, generally really positive. And I think it's more, if you love engineering, then just go into engineering. You know what I mean? It's, I would say don't worry about it. Yeah, you might experience some things, and it isn't always, you know, you're not always feeling like you fit in with the crowd, but sometimes that is the best thing about you. That's what makes you the best fit for the company, because you do think differently, because you do bring a different perspective, and that can be so valuable. And then therefore your career will reflect that difference in opinion and you know, and the difference of thought that you bring to the company. So that's been my experience anyway. It's yeah, it's generally been very positive. It's not, you know, it's not perfect every single day. I would never say that it is, and I think I'd be lying if I did. But it's definitely needed. That's for sure. So just yeah, if you're thinking about, if you're, you know, considering not going into engineering, or considering a different career path instead of engineering because you're worried that it's not quite as diverse, and yeah, I definitely would just say, you know what, just go for it. Just go for it, because it's a good place to be. It's an exciting place to be as well, especially with all of the challenges we have around us about the future of the world and sustainability and everything. Yeah, there's a lot to do.
So thank you again, really interesting insights. I can definitely share a lot of these point of view as well for myself. It's quite good to see that you can be different, and there's actually strength is no weakness. Sometimes it can be described like that when you think about engineering, instead isn't, and it's good. It's shared by people that lead other groups. Moving to something slightly different, a bit more personal, and one of the questions came through and is about what has been your most uncertain time in your professional life, and how did you overcome that? So obviously with COVID coming through as well, a lot of us young members experienced quite a lot of problems, and would like to hear from you and what happened in the past.
Yeah, so I'll go first on this one. I have so many examples here, so I could reel off so many. First, before I even got into being a professional, so when I was doing my GCSEs, I was looking towards the future, and I thought that a good option for me would be going into the army. Frankly, because if you joined the army at the point of you know, going to an army sixth form, they would pay for your degree course. And someone from a, you know, poor working class background like me, that was a very attractive thing, not coming out of the end of university with that debt. And I applied, I got through to the final round, and then I didn't get in. And at that point, and all of my plans had been on going to this army sixth form, and so I hadn't even looked at the fallback options. And so I found myself like a couple of weeks before starting my A levels not actually having anywhere to go and do my A levels. So that was a bit of a, oh dear. When I looked around a few, chose one, you know, kind of got on with it. Then going through my A levels, I actually ended up really messing up my maths A level. So I did maths, physics and electronics at A level. and I really, really flunked my maths A level. And so I was supposed to be going to a certain university. I'd got a scholarship from a company based on that university, those grades and everything, and then I didn't get the grades I needed to get into the university. And so again, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I then had to choose whether I went and did another year back, redoing my A levels, or try and get into a different university through clearing. And I decided that I wasn't going to, by doing another year of A levels, I probably wasn't going to come out with better success. I had things going on at home, it's not always easy growing up as a gay teenager. So yeah, there was a few challenges at home and things like that, which meant I just wanted to get out. I just wanted to go to university, move away, all of that sort of stuff. So I did that. I managed to keep my scholarship, even though I didn't fulfill all of the criteria of it, because the company I won my scholarship with wanted me anyway, which was amazing. And I got on with that, and I went to university, put everything into it. I got a first. I won prizes at uni for best student and that sort of stuff. And so just completely different change of lifestyle and home situation and like that. And it was completely night and day different. And then I guess more recently, so as a result of COVID, I had my the project that I was leading. So the project I was leading was called EFANX. It was a project to basically build the world's first megawatt class hybrid electric aircraft in a demonstrator. So I've been leading that for the past 3 years, and it has honestly been my everything for the past. I've put my heart and soul and everything into that. Great technical challenge for the past 3 years. And as a result of COVID, it became less and less viable for both Airbus and Rolls-Royce, who were working on the program, to continue to spend that kind of money on a flight test demonstrator. And so we made the mutual decision to end that program. And I was a part of that decision and everything, but it still made the outcome of that very, very challenging. So I'm still employed, I still have a job, which is incredible, but my reason for being for the past 3 years had just completely fallen away overnight. And that was really mentally challenging when you were going 110 miles an hour for 3 years solid. I was traveling all the time. I was never at home. I was completely, and then to be at home all the time. And it's been great because I see my daughter so much more, but equally it's been really, really hard to go, what now? What now when when the floor has just fallen from under you? That is really hard, especially motivationally, to keep getting up, to keep going, and go, right, okay, what's the next thing, what's the new thing? And so that is I don't really have any advice or how to overcome that. It's just kind of keep going, because it's, for me, it's that the project is gone, but the vision is still there, the requirement is still there, that individual project is gone, but the overall purpose and reason for doing that still remains. And so it's kind of figuring out, okay, what do we do now instead? If not that, what else? And I guess that's kind of the advice for everything. It's just kind of going, right, acknowledge what has happened, accept it, cry about it, whatever you want to do, and then go, okay, what do I do now? And it's just look towards the future. What are the options? And that's how I've overcome all of these uncertain periods of time. It's just kind of, pick a direction from here and go with it. You can't mourn what was for long, otherwise you'll only stay where you are. And so it's just kind of just pick an option, pick a route going forwards, and just go for it, and you never know where it's going to end up. Warwick, over to you.
Yeah, I'm going to be brief because I know that we're taking some time to go through our questions. I think I'd just totally back up what you said with great examples, Riona, and the fact that a career is a long time, and there will be setbacks along the way, but talented people will always find new and exciting challenges and be looked to lead the next thing. So it's not taking the setbacks too hard. I think my most uncertain periods have been when I've made big jumps into jobs or areas where, frankly, I haven't got the background, I haven't got any domain knowledge, and still then need to lead a big team. And I've had some valuable lessons for me from people who I've looked to and relied upon or used as mentors, to just get the right people around you with the right skills, and they will bring that knowledge. Your job is enabling them to do their absolute best. So there's a few lessons in that. You don't need to know everything. You need to put people around you who can complement what you don't know, and always lean on people throughout your job, throughout your career. They don't need to be like a mentor of someone super senior in the company. Normally it's much more useful to have someone who is a peer of yours, a buddy of yours, who you can bounce ideas off, or someone who's maybe 5 years ahead of where you want to get to, who can provide guidance. But don't go it alone. Always look for support around you, and always ask the questions if you have them, would be my guidance.
So, leading on to this, what keeps your head up on a day when you're disappointed with certain things and have feelings of uncertainty about the future? So, obviously, you talked about difficult times, but on a day-to-day basis, how do you push yourself through it? You're like, well, I'm going to go ahead and still give my best.
I'll go first here. It's really apt because today happens to not only coincide with a day when we're really challenged by everything that a COVID-19 crisis has thrown at aviation and everything we're doing day to day, but it's also our interim results day. We have released some really challenging results because we all know what's happened with flying in the first half of this year. And, you know, people like me, people like Riona have got huge responsibilities in the company, but also to the people in the company and the people we employ. And we're having to make really difficult decisions that impact the livelihoods of people. So there are many days at the moment where you think you could get your head down and you could think that, you know, this is proving really difficult. Where do we go from here? And what I tend to do if I take a moment to reflect is reflect on people, as I've said. Are we doing the best for our people? Are we doing the best for our business? But you know, I'm very proud of the history of Rolls-Royce. There's a reason I grabbed this picture and put it behind me today. It's quite a modern depiction of a car, but it's Bluebird 1935. Driving at 301 miles per hour and setting a land speed record in 1935 with a Rolls-Royce Aero engine in the front of it. And it's a reminder that we're innovators in this company, and we always have been. And sometimes that, or more often than not, that innovation is triggered by crises. And you look at the history of Rolls-Royce, World War I, World War II, were the two biggest crises that had an absolute leap forward in innovation. And that's what we need to take from the position we're in now. You know, that we know that aerospace, aviation, I view it as a source of good. I view it as a source of global mobility, brings people together. We can use a Zoom meeting like this and think of all the things we don't need to do anymore, but really, I absolutely miss getting together with people, whether they're my customers, suppliers, family members, whatever it is. I really miss not being able to get on a plane and travel somewhere easily. And aviation will come back. We've got to use this crisis to make sure that we come back as the future player in that market as well, which is why we're driving innovation so hard. And as Riona said in one of her comments, when we come back, we know that sustainability will be the biggest issue. We'll eclipse coronavirus at one point because the planet needs a totally different low carbon, zero carbon power, whether you're flying on a plane or using the internet. And that's where we are really, really well placed. So I think about a tough crisis we're getting through, but the need to get through it, because we've been going since 1904. We need to go a long way into the future. So we've got to preserve the cash and be strong enough to get through it, drive that innovation, and we're amazingly well placed to come out of that with the technologies that we're positioned in and lead and come up with solutions in the future, which is what Riona's doing. So a good lead to you, Riona, as part of that solution.
Yeah, definitely. I think what keeps my head up personally on a day-to-day basis is that future. There's uncertainty about the short-term future, but I'm so certain of the longer-term future, and that it needs to be far more sustainable than it is today. And so I think it's my advice to anyone, in a general way here, is find that purpose, that overarching purpose that isn't affected on a day-to-day basis. If it is sustainability, like it is sustainable aviation for me, and the electrification of aviation, that's absolutely what gets me out of bed in the morning and keeps me going. I think it's about finding what it is that gives you purpose, not necessarily what your day-to-day role is, but the overarching sort of guiding star that keeps you going. And I didn't enter engineering knowing that this was going to be it. I'm not an aerospace engineer. I didn't enter the aerospace industry because I love aerospace. I do now through having worked in it. But I think it's okay to not know what that guiding star is yet as well, especially if you're early career. But equally, if you do, then follow it and just keep going. I think there is going to be so much opportunity in the future, especially for engineers, because these big problems are historically and will be into the future problems for engineers to solve. You hear in the media it's always a lot about scientists. Well, I think really actually it's the engineers that go and solve these things, not the scientists. So I just think that there's so much to go at for the profession. I think it's a really exciting time actually, because everyone's got to grow and develop and move and change their thinking of what is acceptable. I guess today, what is the solution for today? It doesn't matter whether you're a mechanical engineer, gas turbine engineer. Your role will be different in future. But I think that role will still be valid. It's still required. You might just have to look at, so, I've spent the past 3 years taking a lot of aerospace engineers and having them understand what a hybrid or electric system looks like. So I've got mechanical engineers who usually do rotating gas turbines, and I've had them working on rotating motors. The challenges are pretty similar. So it's about those skills, those roles, they're not going to go away, but actually the product that you focus on might be slightly different to what you know today. And in order to do that, sometimes you have to go back to really the first principles of how that operates. So give you an example, I've had a fans engineer looking at a motor driven fan. And when you take a gas turbine off a fan, it operates very differently. So I've had a world expert in fan design then going to have to go back to first principles to really kind of go, okay, actually all of this stuff that this fan inherently normally does is it's as a result of the gas turbine it's attached to, not a motor. And actually you could design a fan incredibly differently in the future when it's attached to a motor. So I think kind of saying is, even if your role might not seem so relevant right now, or if you've had a disappointment because you've not quite got the role that you want, if you're a graduate or any of these different things, like it's still, or if you're uncertain about the future of your role, there are still going to be opportunities to do something. And inherently as engineers, you have a training and an understanding of the world that enables you to go and apply that to something. It could be very different, and so I think it's just there is hope. There is definitely hope, and yeah, definitely out of crisis normally it generally normally spawns some pretty exciting things.
So again, thank you again for the answer. It's very interesting as usual. And a last question, so we're almost done, is a bit more like fun one. So we're wondering, what's your favorite wind down activity or hobby? So what do you do at home or in a break just to relax a bit?
Yeah, so I've got a 2-year-old, so that generally is a big difference. Maybe not, actually. Maybe it's not so different to talking to people at work sometimes. And I guess more recently, I've been reflecting on the fact that I have more time. So, you know, I'm traveling less. I spent so much time in airports before now, and so now I'm thinking about, right, you know, can I do some physical activity? So I've started running. It's very early days, but I've started running, and I think just to be able to something to switch off, especially when currently there is no split between work and home. You know, I leave the office that I'm sat in now, and my 2-year-old is on me instantly. She's actually in the background right now. And so finding something to go and do for yourself, I think it's been pretty good. And yeah, I've been running and cycling on an exercise bike in my garage.
So I've got 2 daughters. So I've got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. Sometimes they're relaxing, but it's they set perspective really well, and I think that's very important in anyone's work-life balance. They set perspective, and they are glad to drag me out of here doing work. My relaxation is actually through cooking, and more specifically through barbecuing. So I do spend a lot of time. Most people who know me at work know this, because I either have pictures of stuff or tell them a lot about it, but charcoal is obviously favored, and I used to set myself like this key performance indicator of 100 barbecues a year, until I kind of do all sorts of different things on a charcoal barbecue that can take all day or be really quick, and it's the best thing. I love it's to relax me, but you get a good outcome as well. Hopefully you get a decent meal at the end of it. So there you go, Julia.
There you go. I guess a bit different. I didn't expect that.
There you go. Yeah.
This takes us to the end of it, I guess. So, well, as I said before, and I keep repeating it, it's been really interesting. It's really good insights of your life and your feedback on the review, and about how to deal with loneliness, disappointment, uncertainty, both in professional life and even in your personal life, which has been really good. I'd like to thank you both, Warwick and Riona, for your time. And if you enjoyed this interview today, please look out for our other events, including the Paul Stein interview. It is available now on the IMechE, Royal Aeronautical Society and IT YouTube channels. And there are many support resources available from your professional institutions, and they can be found in the bio. Thank you for watching, and take care.